Oh my gosh,
Hi, we're twins.
that's so funny. I almost took them out because I was like, does it look too messy? And my husband was like, you look so cute. Keep them
No,
in.
I love them. I love them. I'm so glad we're twinning.
Me too. Well, thank you for joining me tonight.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I was telling everyone we are chatting about In Stormy Weather.
I
I know
have
that
my shelf over here. There's more down this way too.
I'm obsessed with the purple. Like the blue is gorgeous.
Oh,
I am also really obsessed with the purple and a little heartbroken that I don't have access to it.
so not to like be a salesperson, but there are some stores in the US that are selling it. Shelf Love DSM have signed copies of the UK cover. And then Blackwell's also ships to the US with like in and I think it's like UK pricing, so pretty cheap. But
Oh, that's
I love
great.
the purple so much.
Well, now I feel like I have to run and do that before everyone watching goes.
Yes, I love. They sent me an email, I think the UK team, and they said like the subject was like cover change, and I was like, oh no. I'm like, I love this cover so much, and I was like so afraid to see that. And then they said we're thinking purple, and they sent me the picture, and I was like, done, 100%. Yes, love it. Let's do it. Let's keep it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, well, I want both of them. They're both stunning. I love the foil. Like,
Yep.
it's so gorgeous.
Every time I hold it up, I'm like, oh, look at that. Look what it can do.
I love it. Well, let's just jump right in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you for those who don't know?
Mhm.
What's your author journey been like up to this point?
So, my name is Chelsea. I am a romance author, hybrid author. So, what that means is I write books that are traditionally published with the publisher, Atria, in the US. And then I also self publish a lot of books too. So, In Stormy Weather was actually my 15th book, I think. That was my first traditionally published book. So, 1 through 14 were self published. I did them myself. And In Story Weather was number one as far as the pipeline goes, which has been really exciting. So I started writing in 2022 before 2022, like 2020, 2021, during the pandemic, like most authors did. And I published my first book in 2022. And here we are. It's been a really wild journey and one that I'm not 100% convinced is real. And I feel very grateful for the journey. But that's my like elevator pitch of who I am.
I love it. And we're definitely going to talk a little bit about trad versus indie publishing later.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, can you give a little synopsis of In Stormy Weather? We're going to try to stay spoiler free-ish, but
Okay.
what do you got?
So in stormy weather, and I kind of have perfected this because when I was on tour, I was asked to like give like the quick pitch because I wrote this book so long ago and I finished reading it like in like January, February. So like rethinking about what it's about, I'm like, wait, what is it about? So in stormy weather is rival meteorologists, except he's obsessed with her, who are forced to spend the summer together in Florida covering natural disasters as their jobs do. And there's forced proximity, there's banter, there's a woman in STEM, there's a man who is obsessed with her and who also uplifts her and supports her. There's only one bathtub, and there's hurricanes and tornadoes. So it's kind of small town vibes. Lots of the banter and found family, if you've read my books, that are kind of consistent across my books. And it takes place in Florida, which was really fun because that's where I'm born and raised.
So, where did you get the inspiration from it? Or,
Okay, so going back to 2022, during Hurricane Ian in Florida, I was in Orlando at my parents' house watching the news, and I thought, what about a romance book with two meteorologists? Now, this is like 2 months after I published my first book. And so I had that thought. I wrote it down in my notes app. I literally think I put like storm chasers, fall in love, hurricanes. I think that's like all I put. And I didn't really do anything with it. I wrote a draft that was like 45, 50,000 words. That was a very different entity that it is than it is today. Sent it to two people. They said they really liked it. I was like, great. And I let it sit on my computer and I didn't touch it. I didn't think about I thought about it, but I didn't do anything with it until my agent was like, hey, like, what do you have? What are your plans? What do you want to do? Your goals? And I was like, I have a meteorologist romance, and here we are. So, In Stormy Weather was literally built and born during a hurricane in Florida. which is pretty on brand with the story itself.
It's perfect. And it was like the first storm romance I'd ever read. And I immediately
Hmm.
was like, I want more. Does this actually exist? And then I found
Yeah.
Chase Me If You Can. Like I was
Yep.
able to read that early. And I was like, how perfect that these are like
Yeah.
becoming a thing at the same time. It just feels so wonderful.
I know. And someone asked me, like, on Twitter, they're like, oh, was it inspired by Twisters? And I was like, no, I wrote this before Twisters, but like, Twisters has helped, like, this kind of niche um, romance subgenre kind of blossom and explode, which has been really, really fun to see because it is such a small entity in the whole romance world, but it typically features a woman in STEM who's very smart, who has to know science and physics and all of that. And I'm here for like the really smart women as main characters trend. Like I love it, and especially when the man is like, "Oh my God, you're so smart, I love you," kind of thing, which we need more of, in my opinion.
Yes, and so I don't know if other people had this experience, but to be completely honest, I hadn't read anything that you wrote until
Mhm.
Adria sent me the
Yep.
copy. And so I read it and I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I love this style. I want more. And that's how I got introduced to the
Yeah.
DC Stars. So I feel like I read them from a different perspective, and it
Hmm.
allowed me to see like a little Easter egg in Hat Trick for
Hmm.
Stormy Weather.
Hmm.
So I know we literally just talked about like your inspo and how it came to be, but when did you consciously decide, like, okay, I want to start dropping hints about this in my other works?
Okay, so we're going to go back to 2023. And I wrote a book called Road Trip to Forever. Some people have read it, not many people have read it because this is pre DC Stars, pre sports romance, pre hockey, all of that. And I wrote a book, and in which two best friends go on a road trip, it's shocking, to Florida. And while they're in Florida, they go to see her favorite romance author, who's Mia Dunn, Sebastian's sister. So I knew that Mia existed in this world because I had already kind of written her in Stormy Weather, and so she existed and the story existed, and that was like the first time I really like knew that I didn't know what was going to happen with the story, but I knew we were going to come back to it. And it's been really, really fun to see the people who have like kind of been on the journey with me since 2022 be like, wait a second, is that the same Mia Dunn? I'm like, yep, yes, it is. And then like in Hat Trick, Lexi talks about the meteorologist she follows. That is Quincy. And there are also a couple other Easter eggs from an off camera. I also want to say another Hat Trick Easter egg. There's a mention of a guy who has flowers down in Florida. That's Sebastian's friend Nate. So like I kind of have been laying those bricks for a while, and I love Easter eggs and I love doing that. And I also envision like this huge like universe with all my characters and all my books overlapping. And but yeah, 2023 Road Trip to Forever. That was like the first time I consciously put um like that Easter egg in, not knowing when, if ever, it would come back because publishing and everything like that. And then it did, which is really, really cool to see full circle moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think readers love Easter eggs. So
Mhm.
I'm always so intrigued by authors and how they manage to like plop them throughout because
Yeah.
it seems like it's so much work. Like
Yeah.
you need like whiteboards and all the notes.
Yep. Yeah. And it's something that like as I write more, there's so much more. And then there's like layers, and someone tagged me on Threads and they had a screenshot that was literally like a Google sheet that said like Chelsea Curto Easter eggs. And like when they read, they like go in and like add Easter eggs or look at Easter eggs. And I'm like, almost everything I do is intentional as far as like names and people who are going to come back. But there's been a couple times when I've done something and people think it's an Easter egg. Like I referenced F1, and I want to say, maybe I don't remember which DC stars, but I referenced it twice in the book, and like everybody online was like, "Are you going to write an F1 romance?" I said, "I promise you, no. Like that is not an Easter egg. That is just a coincidence. I must have been around people talking about F1 when I wrote it, but there's not going to be an F1 romance. I promise." So like. Like most things are Easter eggs, but I feel like I've done so many Easter eggs that people start to think something is an Easter egg, and if it's not, I'm like, nope, just enjoy. Like that's just like a fun little, insert there. It has no bearing on like 8 books down the road.
That's hilarious. Well,
Yeah.
you did mention strong females and how that's
Hmm.
something that you really latch onto, and I love that. Excuse me. I think it's something that you're definitely known for, and
Hmm.
putting women in these spaces that they may not necessarily be like a dominating force in, like
Hmm.
Vinci and being a PhD in meteorology. So
Hmm.
why is it so important for you to tell these types of stories?
You know, when I first started writing, I was kind of trying to figure out my brand, what I wanted to like make my author voice, the way I wanted to portray characters. And then I wrote Face Off, which is a hockey romance, and she's in the NHL too. They're on the same NHL team. And that was my first time. Well, a couple books before I had written like a pediatrician, like women in these really like strong career fields, but Face Off was the first time where I was like, I am putting her in this hugely male dominated field. Like she is the 0.00001% being a woman playing on an NHL team. And after that, I was like, you know what? This has to be a theme throughout from now on because it's one of those things where I feel like the real world loves to tear women down, and we're, women are looked at for their looks or what size they are, and things like that. And when I'm writing, I'm really thinking about, okay, how can I tell this story through a different lens that uplifts this woman, has her surrounded by a good group of girlfriends, that there's no competition, no cattiness, none of that, and puts her in a field where frankly people don't want her to belong. I love sports. I've always loved sports. I was an athlete growing up, and I've always loved basketball and any sport. And I've existed in the sports space on Twitter, whatever it used to be called, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And whenever you go on one of the sports posts, ESPN, whoever, they post either a woman playing a sport or a woman comments on it under a post with sports. The flood of comments come in. Oh, no, get back to the kitchen. You don't belong here. Oh, if you're a fan, tell us the starting five of the New York Knicks in 1997. And it's like, why can't we like sports? Like, why can't we like these things? And like, why can't these main characters exist in this world where she is a meteorologist, where she does play in the NHL, where she is an athletic trainer and one of the best in the league? And it's sad that it's like fiction because it is far from reality, but I'm also hoping that with this rise in romance and authors writing these incredibly strong heroines, that we're going to see more of that in real life. And I think we are, with movies, TV shows, and my hope is it only continues because I love showcasing women in those lesser known fields where people don't think that they should take up space, and I'm going to put them front and center, and I'm going to take up as much space as possible.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Speaking of friendships, you mentioned like these strong female friendships. Well, one of her best friends, Mia, we've talked about, is
Mhm.
Sebastian's sister.
Yeah.
And he happens to be like, so they've had this connection forever because of his
Hmm.
sister. He happens to be like her long-standing rival, but
Hmm.
also like an incredible yearner, which you
Yeah.
learn as you read it. I'm curious to know, like, what is the key to writing this shifting dynamic from like playfully loathing to
Hmm.
I'm acknowledging my chemistry and feelings for you type of situation?
So I have come to find out that my favorite trope is rivals to lovers, but it's one sided, where she can't stand him, and his point of view is always just like, look how magnificent she is. Going back to like what I was talking about with women and existing in spaces, I don't want to read a romance novel where the guy is mean, where he, talks poorly about her career, especially when she exists in that male dominated space. Like, in no version of this was Sebastian going to be a guy who was like, no, she doesn't belong here because she's a woman. Like, he was always going to be like, even if they didn't get along, he was going to be like, no, she's the only one with the PhD. We're going to listen to her, kind of thing. And I love banter. Writing banter is my favorite part of the writing process. I could write banter all day long. And especially when it's like the jabs where like she's like trying to like actually land like kind of that sarcastic blow. And he's just like, she thinks I hate her, but I'm just having it. Like, I'm just happy to be around her. Like, I think that's so fun. And It's a little bit of work because I have done this a couple times in the past, and you don't want the characters to sound too similar. And when you've written 15 books, you're kind of like, okay, wait, does that one, and try to keep the voice fresh and fun. But as far as writing those scenes, I really am just like, how much banter can I squeeze into these moments? And like how far can I push the boundary with them making like going at each other without it obviously being too mean or too cruel or anything like that. And so writing Sebastian and Quincy was really fun because, she's talking about how he's arrogant and can't stand him. But then there becomes obviously a moment in the book. I won't ruin it, but there is a scene where like something happens, natural disaster wise, and she's kind of like, hang on a second, maybe he's not always like that. And that kind of shifts her tune. So I do think when you have that kind of back and forth, there has to be some sort of defining moment in the story where either they both look at each other through a different lens, or if she's the one who has the grudge, she looks at him through a different lens. And I feel like that was pretty spot on with this book, where I'm not going to spoil it again, but like that moment where she's like, oh, okay, so he is kind of selfless and he will help and take care of me, kind of thing.
Well, and again, I'm not trying to spoil anything either here, but when we're talking about weather, it's
Mm.
essentially its own character here.
Yeah.
And I mean, it plays a massive role throughout the story.
Mm.
Obviously, like it's their entire careers and what they
Right.
focus on. What kind of research did you have to do to make them experts in this field?
A lot. I am not a meteorologist. I love weather. I love hurricanes. Every hurricane season, I track hurricanes. I post about hurricanes. I keep my eye on hurricanes and the tropics. But I'm not a scientist. My brain is not like, I don't like math. I don't like physics. I just like hurricanes and following hurricanes. That comes from being born and raised in Florida, being through a lot throughout my childhood. Like that's just kind of what I'm used to. And so when writing this, I knew that if I was going to make her have a PhD, I had to get it right. Like I had to make sure I portrayed Quincy in an accurate light as best as I could, not being a subject matter on the field. So I did a lot of research. I'm talking, I read post cyclone documents. I looked at the American Meteorological Society bulletins. One of my beta readers was a meteorologist who helped fact check me. And I spent a lot of time trying to make it as right as I could. Obviously, it's fiction. Not everything is going to be perfect, but I really, really wanted, I said, if I'm going to do this with this niche subject matter, it's got to be right. And like, I'm not going to only do like a little bit of weather. Like, we're going all in on the weather. We're doing the hurricanes, we're doing the tornadoes. We're talking about why tornadoes form, how hurricanes form. But the caveat of not making it too difficult for people to understand. Because again, I'm not a scientist. If I pick up a book that reads like a science textbook, I'm going to say, I'm all set. Thank you very much. And so it was that finding that balance between keeping it understandable enough for like the average person who picks it up, who's not a meteorologist, to read it, but also making sure I do it correctly enough so someone, if they were a meteorologist, if they picked it up, they'd be like, oh yeah, okay, this isn't bad. And I've had a couple messages from people who are in meteorology, school for meteorology, who are connected to meteorology, and they've said it's done pretty well, which makes me feel really happy because I really, really wanted to try to get that right, especially for Quincy being a woman in such a male dominated field.
Yeah, I'm sure that felt like a lot of pressure, but I mean, as someone who has absolutely zero knowledge of meteorology, I feel like you did a great job.
Yay, thank you.
Well, this book is so funny and so flirty. So,
Mhm.
what was like your strategy for weaving these fun, flirty moments in with the heavier topics like the weather and misogyny and things
Mhm.
like that?
I feel like because I've tended to do that in every book now, it just kind of works its way in. But there is a line of balancing between, especially in this with like the weather, the misogyny, the job, everything that's going on. Also, keeping at its core, it's a romance book. So they have to fall in love. They have to have those moments together. And like, yeah, okay, we could talk about taking down the patriarchy, but we also need to have them having those moments together and interacting and having the back and forth. And I am a writer who loves I write very long books. Like my DC Stars books are really long because I am someone who really, really loves not just the big moments, but the small moments too. Like little scenes where they're like sitting on a couch or they're just like hanging out. Because for me, that makes me believe that this couple is going to make it down the road. And so like we have these big moments with the tornadoes and the hurricanes and all of that, but there's also some moments they go to the beach, they go to they have the chili cook-off, so, interweaving those all together where we have the big plot of like summer in Florida, but we also have these little moments where they're kind of growing in themselves, growing as a couple, even though they're not a couple yet. And it's a hard balance, and sometimes it takes a little bit, but I also think it kind of goes back to banter and my writing style of really leaning into that to kind of sell the story on that. And yeah, like I said, I would write a whole book on banter if I could. Like, I don't need character development. I don't need like plot, whatever. Like, just give me the banter and I'm happy. Like, thank you very much. Keep the rest.
Dialogue all day.
Dialogue all day. Yep, they're going back and forth. Oh no, now I think I'm catching feelings. Like, because like we had a moment and now we're having game night with our friends and he's helping clean up my house. You know what I mean? Like little stuff like that all woven together, I think kind of makes the story what it is.
Well, as a romance author, you are totally comfortable for putting physical intimacy on the page.
Mhm.
Why do you think that's important to do?
It's just a personal preference. I will say it's the last thing I write. It's the hardest thing for me to write because there's a lot of moving parts, literally and figuratively. I try to figure out how is this moving a plot forward. Sometimes it's just there for a good time and there's no plot movement and it's just there for we're putting it in. But I do tend to write those scenes last. And as a reader, I'll read open door, I'll read closed door. Personally, as an author, I prefer to write open door because I like conveying intimacy that way. But I have so much respect for the authors who do a closed door dynamic, who capture that intimacy off page and make the relationship believable. I'm like, nope, they got to be in bed together. Thank you very much. There's got to be cuddling after. He's got to take care of her. Like that's something I personally enjoy. But and that's how I've always written, and maybe it's because those do tend to be more of the stories I write, or sorry, read. But it's hard because you do have to, again, going back to like weaving everything together, you have to weave in that with the character development, and you only have so many pages. Like my indie books, I'm like, I could write 800 pages if I want to, but I don't know if my publisher wants 800 pages. And so it's kind of a balance, and I do enjoy kind of seeing that moment within the intimate moments of, I don't know, like I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but like where they're like looking at each other and he's like, "Oh, or, like, are you okay?" And she's like having a thought of like, "I can't believe I'm doing this with him." I never thought this would be a thing, kind of thought. And I don't know, I really like that, and I just like seeing that closeness on page. And I don't know, but like I said, I will read anything open closed door. I don't know if I could write a closed door. Maybe one day, but like for now, I'm like team open door, put it in there. I enjoy it, even though they are very difficult for me to write. But I do love adding that in to kind of add that extra layer of intimacy.
So when you say that you write
Mm,
them last, does that mean
mm.
you just like kind of put a placeholder? You're like,
Yep,
scene to come, and then
yep.
just revisit it?
Go on. Yep.
Yeah, I
Now,
mean,
sometimes I will have like a scene where like I like a quote or like a passage that I know is going to be in a bigger scene will come to me, and I'll kind of plug that in and I'll write a little bit around that as far as those scenes go. But I tend to, when I get there, I go, okay, next, and I skip to the next thing, because it takes me a very long time to write everything, coordinate everything. And again, this goes back to being a long writer. My chapters tend to be like 3,000 words. So, and I typically do two chapters, one in his, one in her point of view. So that's 6,000 words, which 6,000 words dialogue, banter, easy peasy. I could do it in a day. But like when there's all the moving parts and like hands and legs and all of like the coordinating, all of that, I'm like, nope, we're going to take this really slow. We'll figure it out one of these days.
well, you do write in dual point of view. So
Mhm.
what is your approach to that? How do you get in each character's mindset?
Ooh, I don't know. So this In Stormy Weather was originally single point of view, dual timeline, and second chance. Three things I've never written in my span of my career. And because I love being in the guy's head too, because I don't want there to be any doubt. And it kind of goes back to it being a believable story. For me, I think that there are some authors out there who are so immensely talented. They convey everything through the single point of view. For me, I think my writing is best when I show both point of views. Um, Maybe one day I'll be able to do single point of view. I don't know. But I do love a dual point of view because it kind of gives you both sides, puts you in the moment with both of them, what they're both thinking, what they're both feeling. And then there's no room for like, oh no, he wasn't thinking that. When in his chapter he literally is thinking that, and it makes it believable. It makes me, think like, okay, yep, this couple is the real deal. Like he's having these thoughts, she's having these thoughts. We're on the same page, even if they're not saying it together. Everything's gonna be fine. But I also love writing a male point of view because I just love writing people who are obsessed, and all my men tend to be obsessed. And each time I'm like, how can I make this one yearn even more than the last one? And I feel like Sebastian is up there with the yearning. With my, I would say, Hat Trick and Face Off are my other top two yearners. And I think Sebastian's up there with In Stormy Weather as far as that goes. But I like knowing like that he doesn't hate her, because like from her point of view, you would think, oh no, he doesn't care about her at all, and then he shows up on page for the first time. He's like, oh, yeah, no, she's intelligent and beautiful, and I'm obsessed with her.
What was the most rewarding part for you of writing their love story?
You know, that's another good question. I feel like writing it in the sense that, how do I say this without being too spoilerly? She gets what she wants without having to compromise anything for it. And he also uplifts that goal and dream of hers without having to like make himself feel small or make her feel small. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but I like that they both kind of like, she got what she wanted. He didn't really get what he wanted, but in the end he did because he got her, and that's really all he really wanted. But it was kind of just showcasing that women can get what they want without giving up a part of themselves, or a part of themselves for a man or a relationship. And that like, yeah, it's fiction, but there are men out there who will uplift you, who will support you, who will support your dreams and your goals. So like kind of, and I feel like the job thing like was kind of like, I didn't know if we were going to put it in. I didn't know if it was going to stay, but I do feel like it ties the book together with a nice bow, because it gives Quincy this other stepping stone in her career that of what she wants, but it also makes Sebastian kind of pivot for a guy who's had everything handed to him his whole life. So I feel like, with those two, and that kind of that she gets that he doesn't, but now we're together, we're both going to do what we want. I was really proud of how that kind of came together in the end. And then honestly, just Quincy as a character, I like her a lot. I think she's strong. I think she is existing in a space where um people don't want her, but she just does what she wants, and she's amazing. And so kind of taking her on that journey of taking her walls down, especially with Sebastian, was really rewarding to see.
Well, it was rewarding to read, so thank
Yeah.
you. We touched on this earlier about how this is your first traditionally published book. Everything before this has been indie. And
Mhm.
then also subsequently, DC Stars has been picked up by
Mhm.
your publisher. What was that process like? And how does it differ from your typical indie? Did your writing have to change? Like,
Mhm.
just a little bit about that.
So we went to, when my agent asked me back late 2023, early 2024. Wait, no, late 2024, early 2025. And I cannot believe we're already like well past halfway in 2026. And she asked me like, kind of like, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself? What do you want to do? And I've said, I would love to see my books in more bookstores. I would love for my books to be reach more people. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do that as an indie author. And she said, okay, well, what do you have? I said In Stormy Weather. We went on submission, went to auction, and like a week and a half later, we went with Atria, and I'm so glad I am working with them. And it's been I feel very lucky because the process for me has been wonderful. As an indie author, you're doing everything by yourself. You are reaching out to cover designers, you're finding an editor, you're marketing, you're figuring out release dates, you're doing all this. You're like, oh, do I go to do this as an event? Do I not do this as an event? And with my publisher, I didn't have to do any of that. I wrote the book, I turned it in. That was pretty much it. And it's like having this whole team around you. I have a marketing team, a publicity team, my editor who, is giving me feedback, and I can bounce feedback off of at any time. And tour and everything like that. So it's such a collaborative effort, whereas the indie author side is very much solitary. I mean, obviously you have friends, I have a couple PAs, but like I'm doing everything by myself, and it's really nice to have that group of people around you supporting you, because it's hard. Publishing is really hard. It's not easy. And I'm very happy that I'm in both realms of the space. I'm in the indie world, I'm in the trad world, and that's a place I kind of want to be in the middle of. And we've done In Stormy Weather was supposed to be the first trad title, but we released Face Off and Power Play with Atria before In Stormy Weather. We released them early with the front list, but I am so grateful for my time that I've had with them, and I hope that we keep working together, because it's so it's nice to have people in your corner, and if you have any question, there's someone you can reach out to, which is really really nice. And yeah, I don't know. I feel very, very lucky, and I'm very excited about what's to come. And all the DC stars are going to come to stores, and this has more books hopefully in the series. So it's a great partnership, and I feel very very lucky that this is like the direction I'm taking.
Well, I love that for you. I am obviously not an author, but I can speak to working with them like on this side of things, and they are such a
Mhm.
delight to work with. So I'm glad to hear that's
Yay.
the same for you as the author.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
well, I think everyone would be very upset with me if I didn't ask before you go, what's next for you? I know we just got In Stormy Weather, so we're not trying to rush you, but also what's next?
I just turned in a draft of book two in the In Stormy Weather universe. It is not weather related. That was the only meteorologist we're getting. We're not getting any more meteorologists. So in my head, this is a 4-book series, and I've said this on tour when I was on tour. This is a 4-book series where each book is an element. So book one was wind, with the hurricanes and tornadoes. And book two will be fire, with a firefighter and a romance author with a wedding that doesn't happen right at the beginning. And so I just turned in book two, or sorry, I did not turn in book two. I turned in a draft of book two, a very, very not great draft of book two, but it is there. The words are there. And it's very different vibes than In Stormy Weather, because it's friends to lovers. Um, Fake dating, and which is really fun, and we get more of like the small town vibes, friend group. And yeah, so it's different vibes, but I am having a really good time with it. So that will be summer 2027. We don't have a date yet. And I don't know, maybe around the same time as In Stormy Weather, but we'll see. We'll figure that out down the road. But yeah, so book two will be fire. And then I have 2 more books in the rest of the series. Hopefully, if I'm lucky enough to write those and publish those, that will be um, water and earth, very loosely based on those, which will be really exciting. And yeah, that's the little In Stormy Weather universe, which is so cool to see, because if you had told me back when I like first wrote this idea down on my notes app that this was going to happen, I would have said, nope, no way, not possible. And yeah, here we are, which is really, really surreal.
And then you have the next DC Stars book coming
Yep,
out pretty soon at the end
yep,
of this month, right?
yep. Cross check.
Yeah, so you're just a busy woman.
Busy woman, but you know what? It's one of those things where my brain does not stop. My brain is always going. I have so many stories I want to tell. And I remember when I first started writing, I told my boyfriend, and I said, if one person reads my book, I'll be happy. And at the end of the day, like, I'm going to keep writing. However the books get published, they get published. If one person reads it, if 10,000 people read it, if, five people read it, that's amazing. And I have so many stories to tell. And I also know that nothing in this industry is guaranteed. Everything, there's a lot happening in the world, finances, publishing, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just want to keep telling as many stories as I can for as long as I can. Um, and yeah, so I'm team no sleep. No, that's not true. I slept 8 hours last night. I actually slept like 9 hours last night. But there's a lot happening in my head and a lot of stories I want to tell. So Cross Check is August 26th. And then hopefully two more things later this year too. We'll see. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, drink water, get rest, take care of yourself.
Have my water. Very important.
Well, thank you so much for joining me to talk about In Stormy Weather.
Thank
If you haven't read it
you.
yet, everyone, you need to go get it. It is such a delight, such a treat. And we'll be ready for the firefighter romance. If you want to come back and do this again, we totally should.
I would love that.
Well, thank you so much. Have a great night. And I'm going to go order this purple cover right now.
Yes, no, Shelf Love DSM, those were signed. I signed a lot. I don't think she sold out yet. Or Blackwell's in the UK, they ship to the US. So that's my plug.
All right, everyone, go, go, go. Thank you so much, Chelsea. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.